Bonjour à tous, bienvenue au TechSense Podcast, le podcast de la tech, le podcast du Luxembourg, le podcast de la tech au Luxembourg. Bonjour et bienvenue, Nasir Zubairi.
Bonjour.
Thank you for accepting this invitation. Nasir, you are the CEO of the LHoFT, the Luxembourg House of Financial Technology. It is a foundation supported by the private and the public sector. It's an initiative that drives technology innovation for the Luxembourg's financial services industry, including helping to build Luxembourg's capabilities in technologies such as AI and blockchain. Did I summarize that okay?
That's pretty good, yes.
Thank you. So let me ask you, the finance industry, obviously it's a very large, very important industry in Luxembourg. And what does the LHoFT represent for this industry?
Thank you for having me, firstly, Laurent. What do we represent? I mean, fundamentally, as with any industry, really, the finance industry, be it here or anywhere else, cannot survive without technology, and it plays an increasingly important role in financial services. Critically, I think with the huge surge in demand for new services, changing customer behaviors, new generations expecting different types of solution, being mobile first or computer first even, the industry is required to evolve, and obviously to ensure that the technology it already has is best in class, to ensure that they can continue to operate efficiently and effectively and deliver the services that their customers require. 8 years ago, when I first came here, or 9 years ago now actually, the Minister of Finance at the time, Pierre Gramegna, felt, having been traveling around the world quite a lot, that Luxembourg wasn't really progressing well in this area of financial technology, or fintech as it's often known, and decided that we needed to do something. It happened to coincide with me being here, so to cut a long story short, I sort of provided the government with a business case as to what they could do, and then they asked me to set up and run the LHoFT, as it became known. And the idea is that we're there to really sort of focus. I see that the traditional finance sector, if anything, is my customer, and we're there to really support their evolution and their needs in this incredibly fast-paced changing environment, which is technology. And we do that in multiple different forms. We have a level of expertise within our team, within our facility, both from ourselves as the LHoFT team, but also from the technology companies that we support and have helped to bring to Luxembourg over the years, mainly focused on supporting that traditional finance industry to enable it to continue to be competitive in the years to come, as we depend on financial services in Luxembourg.
Okay, so I understand you had this interaction with the government. Today, in your interaction with the companies in that industry, do you see, is it a pull? Are they coming to you and say, help us to improve that? I'm talking about private companies. Or is it for you a push? Or is it maybe a little bit both? Is it a push for you to go to those companies and say you need to progress in that technology and so on?
Well, when you say companies, there's multiple facets to an ecosystem. The traditional finance sector has evolved very much so in the 9 years, and our team likes to take a little bit of credit for that.
You should.
And I think their needs have changed. I think, be it that there still is a pull, the pull is for different types of services than what we were providing 9 years ago. 9 years ago, I guess our core focus was around helping to attract and find solution providers, so fintech startups and companies that provide technology solutions to facilitate and help the needs of these institutions, and also as to some degree as being an evangelist, helping them to I guess, persuade, be it internal teams, be it management teams, be it often their foreign headquarters or the subsidiaries above them, the importance of technology and having technology license here in Luxembourg and the ability to do things independently to some degree, because people were still at a very early stage of engaging with the fintech sector. Now, as they've evolved and their knowledge has increased and their capabilities have increased, we've seen a massive shift towards education programs, so much more formal education programs. Specifically, and in most demand, obviously, is the latest hype. Although hype seems like a negative word, is artificial intelligence.
The AI, the blockchain, the
AI,
metaverse.
AI. People do want to know
yeah.
about blockchain, but what's really interesting with blockchain is how everyone's, same with AI, everyone seems to be a dilettante in these technologies, and I don't understand why. I remember one time about 7 years ago going into the office to have a discussion with one of the CEOs of a bank, and she was talking in quite a level of detail about blockchain technologies, what the bank's looking to do, why there may be issues, risks, etc., etc. And I said to her, stop for a second, and I took out my telephone and I said, do you know how a text message goes from your phone to my phone? She goes, no. I said, do you know how the internet works? She said, no. I said, your business revolves around these two technologies and you have no idea how they work. Why the hell do you know how blockchain works? Why does it matter, right? Yeah. I think we became too obsessed with how blockchain works and looking at the criticalities and failure points. What I've seen happen more recently is, be it also the technology has matured, but with the shift in focus to AI, it's allowing blockchain to flourish a little bit more because not everyone's talking about it quite as much.
Because it's not in the spotlight.
Yeah, exactly.
So not everybody talks about it.
Yes, and now everyone complains about AI and finds criticism about AI.
It's the new hype. I mean, I know what you mean. As a CIO, I have people in my business coming to me and asking me, Laurent, what about AI and what do we do with AI? And I have to talk to them and say, okay, but what's going to be the business case? We can talk about the technology.
Well, that's a bigger thing. I do still think that with the level of know-how that the general population and the majority of people in Luxembourg have, and I mean no offense by this, not having ever really done anything with AI, the approach to AI, particularly in business, is somewhat wrong. You just mentioned business case, right? Yeah. I think with AI, you need to look more at portfolio level projects and change the way you approach technology. I mean, typically in a business, you go along a single unilateral track. Here's a project, here's a business case. Does it make money? Yes, we invest, or no, we invest. With AI, some of the things that could drive effectiveness, efficiency, lower costs, higher margins, new products, you may not know until you play with AI. So to me, it's about looking at your projects, technology projects, as a portfolio and having an expected return for that portfolio, which allows you some leeway, maybe 5-10% to play with things as well without having to justify the play.
It's interesting because I had this discussion and I don't know if we'll keep it in the podcast, but I had a discussion with my shareholders who asked me during a presentation about the progress of what we were doing. He said, Laurent, what about your AI strategy? And I explained, well, we're playing with it now. I have a team that plays with it, and they use opportunity tools like you have with I don't want to with one specific product. We have the ability to do a translation with AI, and we did save money, but we didn't do it to save money. We just played with it, and the team is playing with it, and they're having this exchange with the business, and we're playing and say, hey, we could do this and we could do that. We just moved one of our database to the cloud, and we realized we could plug an AI tool on it and do better research. So we're playing with it. But I was asked, okay, what is your business strategy? Which is funny because I'm in charge of IT, but what is the AI strategy as if it was something that was going to solve and bring a lot of customers and so on, and I don't think so. And I agree with you, because you need to play, to experiment with it, and then you can say, okay, maybe target a little bit more.
Yes, but I think in the most part, what I see, particularly in financial services, which is very structured and actually has very formalized due to regulation approaches they need to take to projects. Like, for example, they have something called an NPAP project, which is new product approval process, right? Banks have to do this. It's still very waterfall and singular in a straight line, and that's not the right way. Most successful business cases of converting an analog business into a digital business, which, let's face it, is where AI is going to drive a lot of value, do not revolve around looking at single unilateral business cases, around singular processes, because quite often you have to also rethink your process. You have to look at inputs and outputs and forget about the way you do it today, and don't try and just digitize that. I think you need to look at it very differently. I mean, I'd like to see more education occurring around this, because I think that's the only way that we'll most effectively utilize AI. I used to do the maths. I used to run an algo trading desk long time ago. So I actually don't ask me the maths now. I can vaguely recall some of the neural network formulas, etc. We used terms such as agentic AI. We didn't call it that, but we were using those kind of models at the time to trade in the capital markets. But even having done that, when the hype started, 2.5, 3 years ago with ChatGPT, which is special because it put a user interface onto something that was typically in code, I went off and I did another course. I did a course not on the mathematics of AI, but on business of AI, to ensure that regardless of how much I think I know, that I was learning something new and that I was understanding from professionals who work with this day in, day out, how to do it properly and learn some new things around it. I don't think many people have done it who talk about AI. They just talk based upon hearsay, having read a few things, often sometimes which are myths, sometimes which are not true, etc. Everyone can be a dilettante in this age of social media and in the information highway, right? Ironically, you can just ask ChatGPT to give you a summary of AI, and it, but is that really understanding and knowing it? So I think we need to, it was the same with blockchain, right? I think we're at a very early stage of maturity right now. We need to move forward, but we do have to move quickly. I mean, I was having a discussion with a CIO friend of mine here in Lux who's very knowledgeable about AI. He genuinely is, and I'm very impressed with what he's doing in his business. And the interesting question he posed, he said to me that he posed to his board was, he said to them, what roles do you think we'll be hiring people into in 3 to 5 years' time? And they started, and he goes, no, really think with AI and even what we've been doing so far and what potentially will happen in the next 3 to 5 years, what people do you think we need in this business? It's all going to change, and you can't often predict that, and that's part of the broader thinking we need to put together around this subject, which I think we'll get there, but we need to hurry up and get there.
Yeah, and I think also one of the questions I ask in my company is, where do we take our business? Because you talk about investment. Now we're doing something that for our industry is fairly new, is to have an online ordering platform. It seems, nowadays when you have Amazon, people might think, oh, how come you're not using that? But we have a very B2B business, or style business, and I asked the business, is this really the right, is it where we want to go? Because it requires investment and so on. So having some forward thinking. Speaking of forward thinking, putting aside the hype, what do you see I wanted to say technology, but or functionalities in fintech that we should watch out for in the coming years, or the type of new service companies that you think are going to come up?
Well, I think AI and blockchain in particular, given the context of Luxembourg, are going to be critical. Blockchain, as I said, given that it's now maturing, it's moving fast. Luxembourg has a huge lead in this area, actually, within the European Union, particularly in the area of tokenization of securities. The government has been very progressive in implementing new blockchain laws. So we're on blockchain law 4 now, which is way ahead of other countries. And this isn't just hearsay. It's evidenced by the fact that the actors in the finance industry are leveraging this framework to deploy their solutions here. So the first big tokenized bond issues have all occurred in Luxembourg under Luxembourg law, because we have the most advanced framework. And I think we're going to grow, and that is a competitive advantage that I think we're looking to maintain, because it will drive a new business opportunity for Luxembourg. AI is going to be critical as well, because ultimately Luxembourg, in a large part, amongst many of the functions that occur here in the finance sector, are largely cost center based. Right? And administration based. Now, of course, we want to ensure that there's a humanized approach to AI, but, my premise is simply this, that technology as a whole, and AI specifically, it automates tasks. It doesn't automate people. Right? What we need to be considering is, as I posed to you earlier, is this element of what else can people do, and where are the core things that people need to focus on? What can we leave to the machine? We don't need somebody at a basic level. You're accounting, right? Every business has to do accounting. Anything like that is the first thing you can automate, right? As long as you've got a good process to feed the data, I don't need a person to run my accounting anymore. I can automate all of that and that doesn't even require complex AI. But we need to look at things around marketing, right? We need to look at elements around in finance, financial fraud, on customer onboarding, wealth advisory, right? Do I need to pay a wealth advisor to give me advice on the portfolio of investments I should make, when there are now a plethora of tools online that can provide this? So, from me as a consumer, I don't need to pay for their service. That impacts the business. So the business needs to think, how can I leverage these technologies in order to continue to engage with those customers? And in wealth management, I think that'll involve bankers offering some of the what were typically the higher end services, like tax optimization, estate planning, etc., and automating those processes so that they're cost effective, and offering them to the mass market, and then leaving very specialized tools for that. So we need to rethink all of this. And so these tools that can enable this to happen, to lower costs, to manage effectiveness, deliver new products, to meet customer expectations, that's where we're going to see a lot of buzz in the next few years.
Yeah, and I'm smiling when you talked about the wealth management, because I remember a call I had with somebody who wanted to sell me their investment and their thing, and I looked at it, and it took me a couple of minutes while I was on the phone with a guy to tell him, I realize what you're offering me is not the market is performing better than what you're proposing, so I just have to buy an ETF or something like that on the market. So there are the tools, and like you're saying, that means the technology is changing the landscape of the jobs in this industry. And you talk about tools, and we have to make progress with those tools and these technologies. And I looked at when I looked at what you do with the LHoFT, I noticed that you talk about a program for the startups, and you bring some help. How do you support the startups in that industry?
Well, we have multiple facets to what we do with startups. So first and foremost, we have the bare bones, which is incubation. So we have a large facility, a co-working facility. We have right now about 80 companies in that facility. Some of whom are genuinely startups, others which are slightly larger, because our remit is around fintech, and that could include larger companies as well. Yeah. For example, I have Alipay's European headquarters in my facility. But we have seen a massive growth in the number of startups originating within Luxembourg over the past few years because of the opportunities and the energy in the sector. We try and help them in a variety of ways. So firstly, the facility in itself, it allows for them to be in a central hub, to be able to meet with other entrepreneurs, to be able to meet with other actors within the ecosystem. You have the
contact, so I imagine
exactly. People are coming in and out all the time. So it creates a friendly, comfortable environment with with like-minded individuals to help them build, to be able to ask questions. We have some venture capital firms in our facility. They can go and talk. Everyone's wandering around. People make new friends. Now, that's particularly opportune for foreign companies, of which we have a lot. People, when foreign companies come, yes, they do hire local people, but they also bring in people from abroad. If you've just moved to a country, it's pretty scary, right? You've got to make new friends, do everything. And so coming into an environment where you can instantly make new friends, people with like-minded like you, so that helps. So that's sort of the passive side of it, the providing that facility though. Then we help those firms in terms of supporting them in helping build their company. So what do I mean by that? We help them with connectivity to market, to their customers. We help them with promotions, featuring them in magazines, in newspapers such as TechSense, for example, but also internationally. We put them on stages at a variety of events. We represent them. Most, if not all, of our marketing activity, be it social media or otherwise, is not really focused on the LHoFT. It's focused on our members and our partners. And the strategy being is that if we showcase them, we're helping us as well, right? Because it's about our ecosystem as a whole.
You're a catalyst for the fintech to grow.
Exactly. And then we have a number of acceleration programs as well, which are thematic. So we have a broad set of programs focused on financial inclusion, which we run for foreign companies. We do Africa, we do Southeast Asia, and as of I think next year we'll also do Latin America. This is working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So this is an element of the finance sector in Luxembourg that sometimes gets overlooked. We are also aside from all the obvious signs of, in the banking side, etc., Luxembourg is the center for microfinance in the whole of the world, actually. But it doesn't seem as glossy as the traditional banking sector. So we try and do our piece to support that. And then critically, we look on a couple of core thematics within Luxembourg. So green fintech, we run a green fintech acceleration program, a fund tech acceleration program, so specifically around use cases to do with the fund management sector, where we work with the Fund Association to help develop those. And we should be launching one or two others around that as well. So those are dedicated programs, very intense, very short, sharp, but they also seem to have worked quite well because it's attracted a lot of interest from abroad.
Nasser, you talked about the Catapult programs, and I know that you worked with other countries, and especially you have a program with Africa. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think it's not necessarily as well known as the others.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, so the Catapult programs began originally with a focus on Africa, working with the Directorate for Development Cooperation and Humanitarian Affairs here. The idea there being that Luxembourg is very well known for the traditional finance sector, everything to do with wealth, private banking, insurance, fund management, etc. But what we sometimes forget also, which we believe is part of our remit, is that we also have the leading microfinance and impact sector. And Luxembourg is particularly dutiful in this area. We are one of, I think, only 6 countries that meets its target of contributing 1% of GNP towards helping developing countries. Obviously now with Xavier Bettel in charge of that, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's also become incredibly prominent. The idea with the Catapult program was, Catapult Inclusion Africa, very specifically, was that money and access to financial services is often the bare bones to helping people get out of poverty. And given this world of fintech and its growing prominence, we felt that there was an opportunity to do some good on Luxembourg's behalf by supporting companies, fintech companies from across the continent of Africa, in helping them develop their solutions and their businesses into more sustainable propositions that therefore will impact and drive more inclusivity in financial services. So we had the first program in 2017, so we're now on our 8th edition this year. It's gone from strength to strength. It's a 1-week program that we hold here in Luxembourg. In most part, we've done one foreign program, and this year actually we'll be doing a foreign program. It will be in Kenya. But it's so gratifying. These firms, we get now 500 applications from companies across Africa. We have to select 10 to 12 companies, which is very hard because the quality we've seen massively rise over the years. And we bring them to Luxembourg, all expenses paid, all the costs are covered, and we try and introduce them to experts and know-how and knowledge and support services from within the Luxembourg ecosystem, but also access to funding services, so venture capitalists, and a network as well, right? Okay. And I mean, it's incredible the scale to which these firms can grow, because I do fundamentally believe that the finance opportunity is far greater potentially in developing markets. We have a congested industry in Western world. You know, some of these countries are just beginning on their journey of enhancing their financial services, and many people are unbanked. And so the scale of impact and growth there can be quite significant. And I mean, the drivers and the motivations of the founders and people who are running these businesses is heart-wrenching in so many ways. I mean, at the end of the boot camp, as we call it, we have a pitching session. Firstly, it's amazing to see how they've improved from the start of the week to the end of the week, because being able to sell, pitching is part of being able to sell, and they do some amazing presentations. But there's been so many times where I and many others in the audience are in tears listening to the presentations. I mean, the stories of why people have set up their businesses, what their objectives are, how they want to help, or you know, when they present some of the stories of their customers and how they have made this positive impact. I mean, you know, and it's really marvelous. We've got a fantastic reputation now across the continent of Africa, to the point where we get asked by countries to help them with their financial technology developments, not really within our scope, but it's also we're very honored to have got to this status. And several of the companies, I believe 2 are already unicorns, and several others are well on the way to being unicorns. Impressive. Because, as I said, the scale of opportunity, if you get it right, is significant. We've had some incredible I mean, one of my favorites has always been a company called LHoFT. LHoFT, not quite $1 billion valuation, but getting close to it. They basically Uberize tractors. So they allow rural communities to club together and borrow money. So that's the fintech element. So they provide lending services to be able to purchase farming equipment. Then they provide them with the tools, the mobile applications, to allow them to rent those tractors out in a sort of Uber fashion, right? Pay-as-you-go kind of fashion, to neighboring communities, so everyone benefits, right? And they've now expanded across multiple countries in Africa, and a real success story. Great, I love the name as well, LHoFT. We've had some great companies go through there, and some of the stories are really, I mean, the drive these people have, and coming sometimes from nothing, and finding the small amounts of money that is required to just get going, and then making it big. It's really incredible.
It's not the same scales in terms of fundings that what we have here, or what people ask here. Is that what you mean? Because when I go to a pitch, I find interesting that all the startups, they ask for at least $500,000.
Well, I think some of them get to that stage, but usually at a very, a lot of these firms are just looking for 50,000 euros, really? Which will drive a lot of growth for them, because they can bootstrap much more effectively. In some ways, they're more effective startups in that sense, because they are able to really be ingenious about how they drive and build their company in the early days.
Culture. I remember it's really part of their culture.
So it's some amazing companies from all over Africa. I think the most successful country where we've had startups from is arguably Egypt. I think we've had 2 companies from Egypt, and both companies have a valuation in excess of 500 million.
Impressive.
I mean, you're talking about 80 million people there, and outside of Cairo and one or two other major centers, the ability for people to access financial services, even an ATM, is very difficult. That's a huge population to be able to service.
And a big potential for growth for the fintech.
Exactly, yeah. But what's also been interesting, because I think sometimes we've had the commentary from people from within the traditional finance sector, is how is this creating value for Luxembourg and our finance industry? Now, creating value for Luxembourg, it is part of, our belief as Luxembourg that, we help developing countries. But for the finance sector, I think what's interesting is over the years, we've actually found that some of these companies do end up moving here, or at least the people end up moving here.
Really?
Because they've got this connection now with Luxembourg. So at the very least, we've had talent arrive in Luxembourg. A few of the firms, be it literally, I could count on one hand, have partnered with others here in Luxembourg. And it critically, it helps disperse our brand, right? Our brand is known in Africa. The LHoFT is known, Luxembourg is known. Luxembourg is known for helping, which provides a positive brand image, which, again, on a macro scale, there's nothing negative about that for our finance industry, right?
And they can use that also for later on to go in those countries and start operations in those countries.
Exactly.
Okay. Very impressive, Nasir. Thank you very much for spending this time with us. I learned a lot of things today. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurent, for having me.